The Velthari Dominion had ruled the Outer Rim for 12,000 years. Their ships moved through the darkness of space like silver ghosts. Their technology was ancient. Their power was absolute, and their shields had never been broken. Commander Zeth stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn and watched the human fleet emerge from faster than light travel. 73 vessels materialized against the black canvas of space. They were smaller than Velthari ships. Their hulls were rough and ugly. They looked like machines built by desperate hands. Zeth allowed himself a small laugh. The Velthari around him joined in quiet amusement. These humans had rejected the Dominion's generous offer of surrender. They had chosen war instead. Now they would learn what war against the Velthari meant. The human ships formed a defensive line near the third planet of the Karath system. This world belonged to them. They called it New Alexandria. 200 million humans lived on its surface. The Velthari had come to claim it. Admiral Helena Cross stood aboard the INV Retribution. She was 57 years old. Her hair was gray. Her eyes were tired. She had lost 3 children to Velthari expansion over the past decade. Her husband had died defending a colony that no longer existed. She had nothing left except duty and hatred. She looked at the tactical display showing the enemy formation. 400 Velthari warships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. They moved with beautiful precision. Their shields glowed faint blue in the darkness. Those shields had stopped plasma. They had stopped nuclear weapons. They had stopped everything the galaxy had thrown at them for thousands of years. Helena pressed the communication button. A voice went out to every ship in the Imperial fleet. "This is Admiral Cross. They think their shields make them gods. Today we teach them they are mortal. Hold formation. Wait for my signal." The Velthari fleet began its approach. They moved slowly because they had no reason to hurry. Victory was certain. It always was. Commander Zeth watched the distance between the fleets decrease. 50,000 kilometers. 40,000. 30,000. At 20,000 kilometers, the Velthari opened fire. Brilliant beams of purple energy lanced across space. They struck the human ships with devastating force. But the human vessels did not explode. Their own shields held, barely. Several ships reported critical damage. 2 frigates lost power completely and drifted away from the formation. Zeth raised his eyebrows slightly. The humans had improved their defensive technology. Interesting, but ultimately meaningless. The human fleet returned fire. Blue plasma bolts and missile swarms crossed the void between the forces. They reached the Velthari ships and struck their shields. The shields flickered slightly. They absorbed every bit of energy. They held without effort. For 3 hours the battle continued in this pattern. The humans would fire. The Velthari shields would absorb. The Velthari would fire. Human ships would take damage. Some would fall back. A few were destroyed completely. The human fleet was dying slowly while inflicting no casualties on their enemy. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Commander Zeth grew bored. This was not a battle. It was an execution. A slow and tedious execution. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Full advance. Let us finish this." The 400 Velthari warships accelerated forward. They would close the distance and tear the human fleet apart at close range. Their shields would protect them from anything the humans could do. Admiral Cross watched them come. She had been waiting for this moment. Our entire strategy depended on the Velthari doing exactly what they were doing now. "All ships," she said calmly. "Execute protocol hammer." Something strange happened in the human fleet. The large warships began to fall back, but the smaller vessels surged forward. 47 frigates and destroyers accelerated directly toward the Velthari formation. They moved at maximum speed. Their engines burned bright. Commander Zeth watched this with confusion. Were the humans trying to ram his ships? That would accomplish nothing. The shields would vaporize any vessel before it made contact. Then the human ships began to launch objects. Hundreds of small cylinders ejected from every advancing vessel. They tumbled through space toward the Valkyrie fleet. They were not missiles. They had no propulsion. They simply drifted forward, carried by the momentum of their launch. The Valkyrie scanned the objects. They found no explosives, no nuclear material, no plasma cores. The cylinders appeared to be empty metal containers. "What are these things?" Zeth asked his science officer. The officer examined the data carefully. "Unknown, Commander. They appear harmless. Perhaps debris or decoys." The cylinders passed through the Valkyrie shields. The shields were designed to stop energy and fast-moving projectiles. These slow-drifting objects triggered no defensive response. They floated harmlessly between the ships. Then they opened. Each cylinder released a cloud of microscopic particles. Billions upon billions of tiny machines spread through the Valkyrie formation. They were smaller than dust. They were invisible to sensors. They settled on every surface. They covered every ship. Admiral Cross watched the particle dispersion on her tactical screen. Green indicators showed successful deployment across 93% of the enemy fleet. She allowed herself a small smile. The humans had learned something important about Valkyrie shields. The shields stopped fast-moving threats. The shields stopped energy weapons. But the shields allowed slow objects to pass. This made sense from a practical standpoint. A species needed their shields to let air pass. They needed shields to let light through. The Valkyrie had calibrated their defenses to distinguish between harmless slow things and dangerous fast things. The humans had spent 5 years building weapons that exploited this weakness. "Activate the resonance frequency," Helena ordered. A signal went out from the Retribution. Every human ship broadcast the same electromagnetic pulse. It was tuned to a very specific frequency. This frequency meant nothing to most machines in the galaxy, but it meant everything to the nanomachines now covering the Valkyrie fleet. The tiny robots activated simultaneously. They had one simple function. They vibrated. They vibrated at the exact harmonic frequency of Valkyrie shield generators. Billions of machines vibrating together created a cascade effect. The vibrations amplified each other. They grew stronger and stronger. On the Eternal Dawn, Commander Zeth felt his ship shudder. Alarms began screaming across every console. His science officer looked up with genuine fear in his eyes. "Commander, our shields, the generators are overloading." "Impossible," Zeth responded. "Compensate. Reroute power." "I cannot. There is some kind of interference. The harmonics are." "Commander, the shields are failing." Across the Valkyrie fleet, the same scene repeated on every ship. Shield generators overheated. They sparked and burned. They exploded. One by one, the protective barriers that had kept the Valkyrie safe for 12,000 years disappeared. For the first time in recorded history, the Valkyrie Dominion faced an enemy without their shields. Admiral Cross saw the moment the shields collapsed. Her tactical display showed every enemy vessel suddenly vulnerable. She felt something she had not felt in years. "Hope. All batteries," she announced. Free fire. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons roared. Missiles screamed across the void. Nuclear torpedoes detonated against bare Valkyrie hulls. The enemy ships had no protection now. They burned. Commander Zeth watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had survived 100 battles were torn apart in seconds. The Eternal Dawn took a direct hit to its engine section. The vessel shuddered and began to list. "Return fire," he screamed. "Destroy them." But the Valkyrie weapons were designed to work with their shields. They were designed to operate from a position of absolute safety. Without that safety, the crews panicked. Their aim was poor. Their coordination collapsed. The humans showed no mercy. They had lost too many worlds. They had buried too many children. They had watched too many colonies burn while Valkyrie shields laughed at their weapons. Helena Cross directed the assault personally. She sent her destroyers against the damaged Veltri cruisers. She used her battleships to hammer the enemy carriers. She coordinated missile strikes against the flagship itself. The Eternal Dawn took it after hit. Its beautiful silver hull became scarred and broken. Fires burned through its corridors. Crew members died at their stations. Commander Zeth finally understood what was happening. The humans had not come to fight a battle. They had come to shatter a myth. They had come to prove that the Veltri could bleed. He reached for the communication controls. All ships retreat. Fall back to the hyperspace point. But only 63 Veltri vessels remained operational. The rest were debris or burning wrecks, and the human fleet was not finished. Admiral Cross pursued the retreating enemy. Her ships were damaged. Her crews were exhausted, but she drove them forward anyway. Every Veltri ship destroyed today was one less ship that would threaten New Alexandria tomorrow. The chase lasted 2 more hours. The humans destroyed another 20 vessels before the survivors reached safe distance and jumped away. 43 Veltri warships escaped from a fleet of 400. Commander Zeth stood in the burning bridge of the Eternal Dawn as his ship limped toward friendly space. He stared at the tactical recordings of the battle. He watched his shields fail. He watched his fleet die. He tried to understand how this had happened. The humans had found a weakness, a fundamental flaw in technology that his people believed was perfect. They had built weapons specifically designed to exploit that flaw. They had waited patiently for the right moment to use them. This was not luck. This was planning. This was intelligence. This was an enemy that learned and adapted. Zeth realized with cold horror that the war had just changed completely. Admiral Helena Cross stood on the observation deck of the Retribution and watched the debris field that had once been the enemy fleet. 31 human ships had been lost today. 8,000 sailors would never return home. The cost was terrible, but New Alexandria was safe. 200 million people would wake up tomorrow in their own beds. Children would go to school. Farmers would tend their fields. Life would continue because the Imperial fleet had held the line. Helena thought about her own children. She thought about her husband. She hoped they would be proud. A communications officer approached. "Admiral, we are receiving transmissions from across the sector. The other Veltri fleets are withdrawing. They are pulling back to defensive positions." Helena nodded slowly. The enemy was afraid now. They had learned that their shields could fail. They had learned that humans could kill them. Fear would make them cautious. Caution would give humanity time to build more weapons and train more soldiers. The war was far from over. The Veltri Dominion was vast and powerful. They would adapt their shields. They would develop countermeasures. The next battle would be harder. But today humanity had won. Today they had proven that nothing in the universe was truly invincible. Today they had given their people hope. Admiral Cross turned away from the viewport. There was work to do, reports to file, repairs to organize, families to notify about their losses. "Set course for New Alexandria," she ordered. "Our people are waiting." The Imperial fleet gathered its wounded and its dead. The ships formed up in escort formation around the damaged vessels. They moved slowly toward the planet they had fought to protect. Behind them, the wreckage of the Veltri fleet tumbled silently through space. Metal and bodies and broken dreams drifting in the eternal darkness. A monument to arrogance. A reminder that shields could shatter. And somewhere in the void, a message spread from system to system. It told a simple story. The Veltri believed their shields invincible. The Imperial fleet believed otherwise. And the Imperial fleet was right. The age of Veltri dominance was ending. The age of humanity was beginning.